Hello, EnderSword here again with a slightly different type of game today. We are looking at a bronze versus silver game, and this was sent in to me by BravoTango here, who is the Protoss player in the bottom left. He actually, or he or she, I think maybe, actually joined this game as a random player, and the opponent is going to be Moth, a Protoss player up here in the top right-hand corner. So the reason I'm doing this game, aside from the fact that it was sent to me and someone asked that I do it, is because it's actually fairly amusing and it deals with some of the other aspects of strategy that I don't deal with as much, namely the idea of cheesing. We're going to see that Moth is going for the easy cheese here. He's putting down the proxy pylon. He did get spotted completely by BravoTango doing that. So he was able to see him go into place, was able to see that this pylon did start going down, and pretty much has an idea that obviously something is going to be up here. So he is, of course, then responding with his own cheesy strategy. Knowing that there won't be anything in Moth's base, he is also going for the sneak in behind the scenes and potentially cannon rush type of cheese. Now there's a few ways that you want to be dealing with this, and there's a few things that both players are kind of doing a little wrong, obviously. It is a Bronze and Silver League game, so I don't expect perfection or anything, but despite seeing that this was in fact going down here, BravoTango doesn't seem all that curious about what is actually going down there. So he doesn't know whether this is a proxy pylon that's going to become cannons with a cannon on the low ground and then him running up top. He doesn't know if it's going to be a proxy gateway, which is what it is going to be, but he basically just doesn't really bother to check here. On the other hand, Moth also saw this probe come out and scout towards his base, but he hasn't actually seen the probe yet. So Moth really should be thinking at this point, where the hell is this probe and why haven't I seen him yet? Clearly I'm getting cheesed as well, and I should be doing something at home to at least scout around, be curious to see if anything's going on. Now in terms of the response here, BravoTango does what seems like a fairly reasonable thing to do. I'm going to put down a cannon in my own base to defend myself. However, the location of this cannon is pretty much non-ideal in two ways. You generally have a couple of options when you're going to make a defensive cannon like this. One, you want to back it up into your own mineral line so that you're kind of turtling in this area and making it hard for them to get at. So by putting a cannon in your own line against zealots, and I'm assuming that he's assuming that this was meant to be a zealot rush, by putting it in your own mineral line, you can surround it by probes. It's somewhat defended by your own buildings. It's harder for them to get a good surround on it. You don't have to pull your probes off the line too far to actually defend the thing. It just makes a good position, and it's defending your key point, the mineral line, and the nexus. So it gives you a strong area that you can then build on and get a safe area while you're doing this cheese out here. So he's not really going to be developing like a military or anything at this point. It is definitely a cheese versus cheese game. The other option, however, if you want it to be a little more aggressive with it, and given how quick he kind of got this photon cannon up before these forces came and attacked, is knowing that the opponent is building right there, why not just put the cannons here? Why not just build in this area, and then you're actually able to take out the things that are attacking you in the first place. So if you don't want to take the completely turtley route, then you might as well take the offensive route. By sticking in the complete mid-ground like this, you're just leaving yourself very open. This is very easy to get a surround on, whereas if you went against the edge here, you could always put, say, a cannon here, pylon there, and prevent the actual surround from happening or get two cannons down, something like that. So by putting it out on the open, it's definitely not ideal, but it still will do a fair bit of damage against just 3 zealots coming. But see how quickly they do get a surround, good surface area, and they are going to be able to take this out. Even though the probes are able to stop the zealots, he does lose a few probes here. In actually doing so, it takes a long time to take those out, and of course we have no mining time during all of that, and we've got him traveling all the way here, traveling all the way back. They can't just sit up here and wait for these guys to come in. Ideally you'd like to surround them as well, but you're not going to just stop mining entirely. He needs to keep some mining going in order to keep his own offensive cannoning going. Moth, of course, is just not paying attention to a single thing at this point. He just now notices the cannon, realizes that it's there and that there's something defending it, and it's basically now too late for him to respond in a really defensive way. He's pretty much lost it. By jumping to the pylon over here doesn't, again, totally make the most sense. You tend to want to keep these a little more compact. I know that what he was thinking is, well, if he kind of goes into this corner and builds, then maybe I can surround it or something. But he can just totally vacate the base and build. You know that his main base is down here. You generally, at this point, know that you're going to be in a zealot versus cannon situation. So you want to avoid kind of stringing them out in a long line, because it makes it easier for more zealots to pick apart piece by piece as opposed to just running into the middle of the thing. These 2 pylons also go down, not making necessarily the most sense at this point. You're definitely not going to get the pylons down and then subsequently get some cannons down, so he really should have not attempted the extra pylon warp in, because you're just not going to get a cannon there at this point. It would be fine if you put one there earlier on. However, it's a little late to do that. And by spending money on both those, he actually, if he didn't do some of the building he did in the last second there, would have been actually able to afford to completely rebuild in this base, where you're actually defended a bit by the cannons themselves. So you tend to want to try and leave yourself an out. If you know that you're about to destroy them, it really doesn't do you a lot of good unless you can also reconstruct. Otherwise, you're now stuck with these cannons just sitting there and a bunch of probes versus what you know is a fair number of zealots. This is actually a fairly scary number of zealots that are going to be here. So both players, of course, have lost their main base and are being revealed. And now they've kind of entered a situation which could easily be just a stalemate. There's really no way for the red player to advance on the blue one unless he makes a big mistake or really lets him do it. And there's not a very good chance that the blue player is going to be able to break into BravoTango's base here with a head-on assault. However, he's certainly got a better chance of that than red does for making a head-on assault. Again, here we see 2 pylons going down when he actually had enough money to go for another cannon. Probably would have liked to have seen a 4th cannon going down as opposed to another pylon, particularly where the placement of these doesn't really stop a surround or anything like that. If he had built them to flank one of the cannons and then tried to block off with some of the probes, that might have made some sense, but it didn't really make a ton of sense to go for the additional pylons here. He would have been better off putting another cannon, say, here, and preventing a situation where the zealots get to attack one at a time, because this is actually quite dangerous. If Moth was able to micro his zealots better than this, he leaves this one alive when it should have died. And he, of course, threw away his probes earlier on. He probably should have won this game. he could have definitely picked that apart a lot better than he did. It may have been too close, but he could have probably won that if he really, really wanted to and had approached it in the correct way. So in either case, he threw away a guaranteed stalemate to go for the win and ended up with the loss. And the probes will peel down these pylons long after Moth has lost the game and left. So just to recap on this, one, I did this mostly because it was just kind of a cute game, and it did kind of come down to the wire there and was fairly interesting. But it just shows that both players had areas where if they had just improved what they were doing a tiny bit, if Moth had just made a little defense back at home, taken one zealot back home or something like that to defend himself, it could have turned out a lot better. Or if he had just paid attention to the fact that BravoTango or BravoTango did come into the base with a probe, if he was paying more attention to the actual game as opposed to just focusing on his own cheese, he could have ended up better off there. And BravoTango could have secured a win a lot easier by either turtling right in his own mineral line or being a little more offensive and getting the cannons in a place where they are able to be surrounded by other buildings, even other cannons, and hold a little better, getting fire on the zealots even as they are actually coming up in the ramp, as opposed to just constantly building in areas where someone can get a very easy surround on you. The other thing that obviously comes up is when you know that you're about to lose your base, when it seems that it's basically inevitable that you're going to lose it, the best thing to do is stay calm, check out your resources, see how far away you are from the possibility of building another base. So this is definitely true when it's your only one, because if you lose your nexus, or what command center or hatchery or whatever, and you don't have enough resources to build another one, you're never going to. So you have to be confident that you can win with what you have if you're going to allow that to happen. In some cases, obviously, you don't have a choice. But when you don't have a choice, when you know that you're going to lose it, say, do I want to spend some of these resources now to futilely attempt to try and defend my base, or am I going to stockpile resources and leave for another area so that I can build another base later on? And that would have been a big key. If either player had decided to conserve and build less zealots or build less pylons, then they could have actually rebuilt in an area that was out of danger. If Moth had just saved enough, cut a couple of those zealots, he still would have been able to take this base out. It wasn't a matter of not having enough zealots. There was nothing there defending it. And there wasn't going to be for the next little while. If he had just saved a little bit, then he could have rebuilt his base over here and been completely free of the cannons, and there'd be nothing that Bravo could do about it. But anyway, very cute game, and you do see a lot of cheeses between Protoss and Protoss a lot, especially when this one was Protoss and random. So that's always fun to do, and thanks for watching. I hope some people found this a bit helpful because it is something you deal with a lot, but mostly I just hope that you found this one a little amusing. Thanks for watching.